One of the biggest questions coming out of last night's UFC Noche event is what is next for Sean O'Malley. O'Malley was on the wrong side of one of the biggest beatdowns of a UFC champion last night when Merab Dvalishvili earned a decision victory over the former champion Sean O'Malley. And look, we know what's next for Merab. There's no debate there. It's going to be Umar. Anyone who wants to argue that with me, we can do that in the comments if you want, but it's got to be Umar next. Let's be honest, guys. That win over Cory Sandhagen certainly puts him in that spot, but Sean O'Malley losing is pretty monumental, not only for O'Malley himself, but for the UFC. This was someone that they saw as a superstar. There's a reason that O'Malley was put in this main event last night. There's a reason they pushed him the way they have and the way they've matched him up. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about what I think the best move could be for Sean O'Malley next as far as an opponent. My name is James Lynch. Make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you haven't already. I'm posting content on this channel every single day. So let's talk about everything that happened in the fight last night. You can look at the stats there. This was all Merab. You maybe gave O'Malley the 5th round, maybe the 3rd round if you're being generous, but you look at the significant strikes, you look at the shots. This was all Merab last night. And it was one of those fights where you kind of looked at Sean O'Malley and you go, he's got a lot of work to do. Now, that's not taking anything away from Merab Dvalishvili. He is one of the most talented bantamweights in the world, an absolute stud. But it did show a lot of holes in O'Malley's game where he was getting taken down at will, wasn't really able to get in on the inside. It wasn't one of those typical O'Malley fights where you saw him get the finish or look super impressive. So there's a reason that they ended up getting Chito Vera first as their first title defense and not Merab, and Merab sort of proved that last night. But anyways, enough about the loss. We're not going to dwell on that. We got to look about what's next. And one other thing I'll just quickly mention, I see a lot of people kind of crapping on O'Malley and his team. This is one of those rare cases where I think it's justified. O'Malley was comparing himself to McGregor. We know that O'Malley fans, we saw them be really disrespectful towards Aljamain Sterling and Merab the night before the fight. There was that video that went around social media. Listen, I have no problem with people promoting themselves. I think it's great that O'Malley has done what he's done. And, you know, he still makes it out like he beat Pedro Munoz. That's something that if you see in interviews, he's like, yeah, I beat him. It's like, no, it was a no contest. You know what I mean? So I don't mind all that. That's part of hyping yourself up. But the downside is when you lose as badly as O'Malley does, fans deserve to have their, their cake and eat it too. And they certainly are today. So again, it just shows like how much interest there is in O'Malley, whether you love him or hate him. The fact that I know there's people, if I go on social media right now, that are just having a field day making fun of O'Malley. And again, I don't think that's offside just because of the fact that O'Malley talked a lot of crap himself, as did his coach Tim Welch. And I like both these guys, but it's the truth. That's what happens. You got to dish it out. If you're going to dish it out, you got to be able to take it. Now, as far as the next fight for O'Malley, I mentioned this on my live stream last night. One of the fights that I thought made perfect sense because I just want to see it. I think that's a huge fight is Cory Sandhagen, right? And a lot of people felt like Cory, prior to fighting Umar, had done enough to get that title shot against Sean O'Malley. Now, that's a fight that may never happen. And now you have a case where, in the case of O'Malley, he's coming off a lopsided loss. You have Cory Sandhagen coming off a loss against Umar Nurmagomedov in a fight that he clearly lost. So that's a fight where you can strike where the iron's hot. That's a big name fight in the division. If you look at the rankings right now, Cory is currently ranked number 4. We've already seen O'Malley fight Jan. I don't know if anyone's really clamoring to see that rematch, although that supposedly could be an option, or could be an option, I should say. So Cory Sandhagen could be an option. And I had fans in my chat last night saying O'Malley beats Cory Sandhagen easily. This again shows the passion of the fan base. I completely disagree. I think that's a fight that Cory wins. Cory's extremely durable. Cory's, is more well-rounded. And more importantly, Cory has really good takedown defense. We saw that in the Umar fight. Yes, Cory did get taken down, but Cory definitely displayed better takedown defense in his fight with Umar than O'Malley did against Merab, in my opinion anyways. We can disagree on that, but I think Cory, if he fights Sean O'Malley, that's a winnable fight. So if O'Malley fights him, and I don't think I'm alone here, by the way, I think there's a lot of people who would pick Sandhagen over O'Malley. Is that good for business? Is that good for the UFC? That's sort of tough to say. So again, while that's a fun, intriguing fight, I don't know if that's the best move for O'Malley next. The other name I heard was Henry Cejudo, and Cejudo did tweet last night. Let me find the tweet right now. Should have had that handy, but forgot to have it on here. So he writes, hey, O'Methel, you wanted to be the next Conor McGregor. Well, now you are. Neither of you bums can defend a takedown. I'm teaching wrestling for cokeheads at 8 a.m. See you in the morning. And Henry Cejudo taking advantage of this situation and talking about that as well. So, yeah, that's another huge fight, is Henry Cejudo and Sean O'Malley. Hype-wise, that would be one of the biggest fights you could put together in the division right now. Is that the greatest style matchup for Sean O'Malley, though, considering what happened last night? Probably not. Henry had a pretty close fight with Merab. Henry's, an Olympic-level wrestler. What was O'Malley's biggest weakness last night? Getting taken down over and over again. I don't think that's the fight to make either. As much as that would be intriguing, because you got to look at it from the UFC's perspective. They were very careful in how they matched up O'Malley throughout his career. If you look early on, I mean, I was making comparisons to, Michael Venom Page and Bellator, how they were matching up O'Malley. Terrion Ware in his debut. Okay, veteran, older guy. Sukumta, fight he actually almost lost. You remember that, where O'Malley got injured and Sukumta couldn't take advantage. He had that, USADA issue that kept him out for a while. Then he fights Quinones, who didn't last long in the UFC. Fought Eddie Wineland towards the tail end of his career. Fights Cheeto. Fight did end in a bit of an injury, but, again, I think that at the time, Vera was not what he was back then. I mean, Vera became better after and then sort of went on his run. But again, that's one. And then Almeida out of the UFC shortly after that. Montinho's not in the UFC. Is Rulen Paiva still in the UFC? I don't think he is. Or if he is, he's not doing a whole lot these days. He's 28. He's not in the UFC either. And then the Munoz fight, like I said, like that ended in an eye poke. And in normal situations, when you have a no contest like that, usually you rebook the fight. They didn't do that. They moved on to Jan, and he wins a very controversial decision. Anyways, I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but my point is, you can see the UFC has been trying to build him up to this point. He becomes champion. He fights Aldo on short notice, and Aldo, Aldo has a quick turnaround from Cejudo to fight him, and O'Malley knocks him out. So it kind of worked out well for the UFC. So basically, the summary of what I'm getting at is, the UFC needs O'Malley to win. It's good for business for them, is what I'm getting at. So Cejudo, Sandhagen does make a lot of sense. All right, so now get to who I think makes the most sense here. And this is one that was again suggested to me, and I can't remember who suggested it, so my apologies for that. But I had someone in my comments yesterday mention this. But here's one that I think could be a bit interesting. Jose Aldo. Now, interesting enough, Jose Aldo going to be fighting a good friend of Sean O'Malley, a friend of his and teammate in Mario Batista. And it's interesting, actually, because right now, if you look on the odds, Aldo's the underdog. I know they don't have it here. Let me show you the odds here. Where's Aldo? Aldo, you can see on most books have him as the underdog. So he's not expected to win. So this whole scenario that I'm throwing out here may not even happen. But there's a chance that Aldo could win this fight. I think this is 50-50. I think this is, I think Batista's extremely underrated. I think he deserves an opportunity like this. But I think Aldo showed in his last fight against Jonathan Martinez, he's still got it. Even at 38, he still looks pretty legit. So, and then prior to him leaving the UFC, who did he lose to? Jan, and what was the other fight? It was Jan and someone else. And Merab, who's the champ now. I mean, those aren't bad losses, right? So anyways, kind of what I'm getting at here. Let's play out this scenario where, again, close fight like this on 307, Aldo wins. Can you imagine a Jose Aldo and Sean O'Malley fight? How big that would be? They've never fought. That's a fresh matchup, two big names there. And this is an easy sell for the casual fans. For the hardcore fans, we would all see this as Aldo's 38, and yes, he's a dangerous striker, but not anywhere close to as dangerous as what he was a few years ago, where he's knocking dudes out with knees and, reigning terror on the featherweight division. This is the version of Aldo that's been finished a few times, that took some time away to go boxing, everything else. But to the casual fan, to O'Malley's fan base, they'd be like, wow, he's fighting Aldo, the former champion. That's how they look at it. So that for the UFC would be good for business. And the best part about this fight is, if it does happen, is that you don't have to worry about takedowns and a ground game really with Aldo. Aldo's more of a striker. So they would stand and bang. So that, again, is a good favorable style matchup for Sean O'Malley. And there's a bit of a revenge angle. You beat my buddy Mario Batista, I'm going to go fight you. So I think at the top of the list right now for O'Malley, what's best for business, and what I mean best for business is get O'Malley a bit of a bounce back fight, that would be Jose Aldo. That's the fight to make. I think that makes the most sense. But again, he's got to get past a pretty tough guy in Mario Batista. So that may not happen. The other option they could do, although I don't know if it happens, but I think that's, again, a winnable fight for O'Malley that could make some sense. I'm going to go with another veteran, Dominick Cruz. I don't know what's going on with Dominick Cruz. That's one of the biggest. They need to make a Netflix documentary about Dominick Cruz and why he's not fighting and why he's still in the rankings. I would like to know that. He's 39. His last fight was against Marlon Chito Vera, which he lost in the first round in August of 2022. A, should be out of the rankings, and B, we need some clarity. It's not like this guy has gone into witness protection. It's not like he's Gregor Gillespie and no one can get a hold of him. Nobody knows what's going on with him, right? Cruz is literally an employee for the UFC, but we have heard no commitment to him coming back. So if he's not retired, absolutely Cruz and O'Malley should be the next fight. No questions asked. It's a winnable fight for O'Malley. Again, there's not the threat of the high-level wrestling from Cruz or, like Merab or these other guys. It's a winnable fight for O'Malley that also comes with some pretty big name value. So that would make sense. And if Cruz is not on the table, and I think Cruz would probably want that fight too. You're fighting Sean O'Malley, who's arguably one of the biggest names in the division. I think that could make sense for him, as opposed to fighting Umar or these other guys that aren't as notable, but you have more of a chance to lose to. So again, Aldo and Cruz, I think, could be the biggest options. let's say Cruz is like, no, I'm done. And let's say Aldo loses to Batista. I think the only other name that could make sense here and is not currently booked right now would be Song Yadong. At least I don't think he's booked. Let me double check that. It's hard to keep track of all these fight announcements, but I don't think Song has a fight booked. And he's 26 years old. Now, here's the benefit of having a fight with Song Yadong and Sean O'Malley is if for some reason Song wins, he gets that shine of O'Malley. And again, they've been trying to build up Song Yadong for a while, right? Like he's a tough loss against Petr Yan and all that in his last fight. You know, you always want to see Song get closer and closer to title contention. He's still only 26 though. So I think that could be a win-win for the UFC because A, I think it's a winnable fight for O'Malley. Again, no bad style matchup here. B, Song, if he happens to win, they go to Asia a lot for the UFC does. That's you've got a guy that you've just built up that has beat Sean O'Malley. So I think that's a win-win too. So again, I'm kind of looking at this from a lot of different angles, but those are my top three choices, Aldo, Cruz, and Song Yadong. And I'm not like, people are going to watch this video and say, oh, you're a big fan of O'Malley. You want him to get an easy matchup. I'm looking at what the UFC wants to do. The UFC has done a very strategic job of building up Sean O'Malley throughout his career. You have to understand it's a business at the end of the day. A lot of people talk about Dana White privilege and all this different stuff. Really, what most of the time it comes down to is just what is best for business. What is good for the UFC here? Sean O'Malley winning and being close to title contention or being in, high up in the rankings or being a champion is good for the UFC's business because he taps into that younger audience, the YouTube audience, the Nina Drama audience. That's Sean O'Malley's audience. That's the younger kids. That's what is making up a big chunk of what people are watching on YouTube. That is Sean O'Malley. So they need him to win. So again, I think that's the best option. As much as I'd love to see Cory Sandhagen or a Yan rematch or even Davidson Figueiredo, who I didn't even mention here, I think those are riskier fights that don't have as much upside. Same with Cejudo. Again, I would take Cejudo because he's older too, but again, the style matchup doesn't work well. So again, those are my choices. Aldo, Cruz, Song Yadong. That's what I think the UFC should do. If any of those happen, I want my 10% Hunter Campbell. Just saying. All right, guys, I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. What should be next for Sean O'Malley? And again, please go through the lens of what is good for business. They're not just going to throw O'Malley to the curb because he lost this fight. They've invested too much in him. You have to remember, fighters that get good title opportunities, good card placement, that are on big cards, are fighters the UFC believes in and they think are good. It's like why Colby got the title shot against Leon. The UFC, you might not think Colby's a star. You can give me all the stats you want out there in the world. It doesn't matter what you think. It's what the UFC thinks. Same thing here applies for O'Malley. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.